Welcome to Reddit Echoes, where stories from Reddit aren't just posts. They're emotional punches, uncomfortable truths, and the kind of drama that cuts deep. Today you'll hear 6 gripping stories where love, family, and trust collide with the harshest sides of reality. From a bride who calls off her wedding after discovering her fiancé made secret deals with his mother, to a wife left alone in the hospital after cancer surgery, to a boyfriend who stands by his girlfriend with PTSD, even when his entire family turns on him. These aren't just stories that will leave you angry or shocked. They might even make you whisper, "If it were me, would I have done anything differently?" So get ready, because every story in today's episode isn't fiction. It's a raw, unfiltered look at the kind of life you might already be living. Story 1. I called off the wedding because my fiancé secretly bought a house with his mom, narration style, honest, sharp, lightly sarcastic with emotional clarity. I never thought I'd be that bride. You know, the runaway kind. But the truth is, I didn't run away from the altar mid-ceremony. I just canceled the whole thing before the dress even got made. I'm 28. I was engaged to my boyfriend of 5 years, he's 30. We were the solid couple people envied. We made it through college together, survived unemployment, family illnesses, and in the end, a candlelit Christmas Eve proposal that felt like something out of a fairy tale. We spent years talking about the future. Our kids would have his brown eyes, we'd adopt a Labrador, and of course we'd buy our dream house. Not just a rental or a starter apartment, a real home where we'd hang our wedding photo and watch our baby take their first steps. At least I thought it was our dream, until I realized I was the only one dreaming. It all started on a perfectly ordinary evening. I stopped by my fiancé's place to go over church options, guest lists, and the wedding budget. I even brought a bottle of white wine because I knew he liked it after a long day at work. When I walked in, he was on the phone with his mom, sounding unusually excited. "Yeah, Mom, I think the backyard's big enough for a reception table. Don't worry, I already put down the deposit." I froze in the doorway. Not because I was eavesdropping, but because I heard enough to know this wasn't about our wedding. And definitely not a casual phone call. I sat down and waited for him to hang up. When he finally looked at me, I asked a simple question. "What was that about a deposit?" He hesitated, then casually said, "Oh, Mom and I just bought a house." "A house." I laughed. Thought it was a joke. It wasn't. He had actually bought a house with his mother, and he never told me. He said his mom found a great property with so much potential, and she didn't want to rent anymore, so they bought it. No discussion with me, no heads up, no opinion asked. I said, "What about me?" And I swear to you, I will never forget his response. "Well, you'll just move in with us, right?" As if I was an accessory, a detachable extra, a free add-on. We had been planning to buy a house together for 3 years. We browsed Zillow together, sent listings back and forth. But he always said, "I'm not financially ready." Turns out, he just wasn't ready with me. With his mom, totally ready. When I asked why he kept it from me, he said, "You saved too slowly. Mom already had the cash. This was the fastest way to build equity." That felt like a slap. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't rich enough. I wasn't worth the partnership. I told him I needed time to think. He didn't argue. He just said, "I think you're overreacting." Overreacting. I had spent 5 years building a life with this man, and the moment he had the chance to make a major life decision, he picked his mom as his real estate partner over his fiancé. I spent 2 days thinking. I looked at my engagement ring, something I used to treasure as the symbol of our beginning. Then I took it off, placed it on the table, and texted him, "We need to talk." We met at our usual coffee shop. I told him I couldn't marry someone who didn't see me as a partner in the biggest decisions of his life. And then I ended it. He was shocked, then angry. He said I was throwing it all away over a house. that I was selfish and disrespectful to his family. Then came the storm. His mom called me a reckless little girl. His cousin texted me, "Be smart. Don't blow this." Even my own parents, who I thought would have my back, asked, "Are you sure you're not being too stubborn?" So there I was, once almost a bride in a fairy tale, now labeled the one who ruined everything. But you know what? If the man I loved could buy a house with his mom and not tell me, what else would he do without telling me? Give her a key to our bedroom, invite her into the delivery room when I give birth. Name our child after her without asking. I didn't cancel the wedding over a house. I canceled it because I realized I would never feel like the woman of the house, only a guest in someone else's home. Now I live in a small rented apartment with a cat and no ring on my finger. But I sleep better than I ever did. And I bought a little sign for my front door. It says, "This home does not share equity with mothers-in-law." Story 2. I kicked my sister out for insulting my husband's deepest wound narration style. Calm, personal. Quietly emotional with a growing sense of resolve. I used to be the forgiving type, the soft one, the one who tried to find the good intention behind every insult because I was terrified that confronting things would tear the family apart. But what happened that night at what was supposed to be a warm family dinner shattered every limit I thought I had. And I, someone who usually avoided conflict at all costs, stood up, pointed to the door, and kicked my own sister out of my house. Not over a petty argument, but because she insulted the one pain my husband has never been able to fully heal from the death of his parents. My husband is the gentlest, kindest, and probably the most patient man I've ever met. He lost both of his parents at 17 in a tragic accident that never should have happened. It was a mass incident caused by negligence from an operations company. Not only did his parents die, but so did several others. His family received a large settlement after a class action lawsuit. But do you think that helped at all? He once told me I'd give it all back, every cent, just to see them again. And I believe him. Because I see the grief in his eyes every year on their Memorial Day. I met him a few years after it happened. When we fell in love, I saw the cracks in his heart. But he never let them define him. He never used them as an excuse to shut out love or life. We married after 4 years of dating, had 3 kids, and built a stable life together. Not because of money, but because we were a team. I knew he was financially secure, but no one outside of my close family ever knew the actual numbers. Even they didn't know the full amount. Because to us, it wasn't something to flaunt. But to my sister, money is everything. That night, we invited my family over for dinner. My parents, my sister, and the new boyfriend she'd just started dating. Everything began nicely. There was laughter, comfort food, my mom's favorite baked pasta. Then my sister started talking about a weekend getaway she and her boyfriend were planning. "We're thinking about heading up to the mountains next weekend. It's a bit pricey, but super romantic." My husband smiled and said, "We've been there. It's amazing. But you really don't need to spend much, you'll love it either way." It was still fine until my sister smirked and said, "Well, we don't have that kind of money like you do." The words sounded casual, but her tone dripped with something else. Like my husband was some spoiled rich guy who's never known struggle. He just smiled and said, "We didn't do anything too fancy either." I thought that would be the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. She turned to me and with this half-joking, half-jealous look mumbled, "He could at least sponsor our trip. I mean, it's not like he can't afford it." I was stunned. I turned to look at her like she had just punched my husband in the face. "What did you just say? I mean, I'm just saying he's rich. What's the big deal? It's just one little trip." My husband stayed polite to a degree that made me want to scream. "That's a big ask," he said calmly, "especially for a getaway." And then, with a voice soaked in envy and cruelty, my sister said something I will never forgive. "He doesn't even know how lucky he is. I swear I'd trade everything just to have that kind of money." The room went cold. She just said she'd trade everything her entire life to have the money my husband got, from losing his parents, in a room where our parents were sitting, and she had just insulted their son-in-law and the people he lost. I stood up. My hands were shaking. I didn't yell, I spoke clearly. "Get out of my house, right now. You're overreacting, out, now." And I walked my sister to the door. No regret, no hesitation. Since that night, she's called and texted every single day. She says I'm dramatic, that I'm acting like a queen, that I abandoned family over a joke. I didn't answer. I only texted back once, "I will not forgive anyone who disrespects my husband's deepest pain. Unless you're ready to apologize from the heart, don't ever come near my home again." My husband has always wanted to keep the peace. He told me I didn't have to go that far, that he didn't want to be the reason my family falls apart. I held his hand and said, "You're not the reason." My sister made her choice. I'm just standing on the right side of it. I don't know when she'll apologize. Maybe next month. Maybe never. But I know this. If I don't protect my husband from cruel words, who will he lost both his parents at 17? I'm not letting him lose his faith in family again. Story 3. They said my natural hair was cultural appropriation, and for the first time I didn't stay silent narration style, calm and restrained but powerful, building toward quiet defiance and self-empowerment. I've never been someone who looks for a fight. I'm more of the keep the peace type, the kind of person who gets the wrong order at a restaurant and still smiles and says, "It's okay, thank you," because I don't want to make things uncomfortable. I'm also not the one to jump into political or social debates even when my friends do. We've been a tight-knit group since high school now. In college, we still meet up regularly like a form of communal therapy. Almost everyone in the group is a person of color except me. I'm the only white girl, and that had never been a problem. Until one day, my hair was suddenly put on trial. Let me tell you first, my hair is 100% natural. No straightening, no curling, no styling tricks. It's just a massive, thick, frizzy explosion of tight curls like a giant puffball. I used to hate it. As a kid, I got called Mufasa Poofhead, and once a 7th grade crush said I looked like a mop. But over time, I stopped trying to change it. Not because I thought it was cool, but because I got tired of forcing it into something it was never meant to be. And then one day my friends told me I was guilty of cultural appropriation because of my hair. That hangout started like any other. We were sitting in someone's backyard, there was pizza lemonade and talk about recent social movements. The topic of cultural appropriation came up, and I was genuinely listening with respect. I get it, from costumes to hairstyles, there are boundaries that deserve to be honored. I nodded through everyone's points, feeling like I was learning something, until I started to feel the looks. You know that feeling. Like you're standing on stage and everyone else has a script except you. One friend glanced at my hair, then looked at someone else. Then I heard someone say, "It's weird how some people still wear froze like that, even though it's clearly not part of their culture." I went quiet, because I knew they were talking about me. My usual reaction would have been to shrug and nervously laugh it off. But then one friend, let's call her A, turned to me and said directly, "You really think it's okay to wear your hair like that?" I froze. Absolutely froze. Every strand on my head was screaming, "Wait, what?" I gave a nervous laugh. "This is my natural hair." Another chimed in. "Yeah, sure. But don't you think people might see it as appropriation?" At that moment, I felt like I was being forced into a no-win space. Not enough to belong, but not different enough to be left alone. I said, "You guys know I've had this hair since I was a kid." A responded dead serious. "Then maybe you should straighten it, just to avoid confusion. Leaving it like that, unintentionally, causes harm." I looked around at these people. Friends I'd known for 5-6 years. Friends who had slept over at my house eating my mom's lasagna, teased me about my celebrity crush posters, now staring at me like I was some symbol of cultural invasion. And for the first time in my life, I didn't swallow it. I clenched the soda can in my hand and said louder than I meant to, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being born like this." Silence. No one laughed. Someone muttered, "Yikes." I looked at A, tears stuck in my throat. "You know this is my natural hair, and you want me to hide it just so I don't make people uncomfortable. Tell me, which part of that makes me the one doing harm?" The air went still. A few people stood up and left early. No one said anything else to me. I sat there a few more minutes feeling like I had broken some unspoken rule. Not because I feared losing friends, but because I never thought I'd have to apologize for the texture of the hair I was born with. I went home and told my mom. She was quiet for a moment, then asked, "So what are you going to do? Straighten your hair or hold your head up?" I chose the second one. A few days later, some friends texted. Not to apologize, but more like, "Can you explain your perspective from the other night? We don't want to misunderstand." I replied, "I don't owe anyone an explanation for my hair. But if you want an honest conversation, I'm here." One friend apologized, one didn't, and a few disappeared from my life completely. I still wear my hair naturally. No heat, no hiding, no apologies. And for the first time, I feel free. Not because I was right, but because I finally stopped pretending that someone else's distortion of who I am deserves my silence. Story 4. I never told my mother I married a rich man because she doesn't deserve to know narration style, reflective, emotional, quietly powerful, with a steady voice of survival and hard-earned strength. I'm 34 and I've spent most of my life surviving, not living. Just surviving. While other kids were learning to spell the word love, I was learning to time how long it took my mother to sober up. While my friends were eating home-cooked dinners from their moms, I was digging through the fridge for a moldy piece of bread. And when people asked, "Who do you want to be like when you grow up?" I couldn't say it out loud, but I thought, anyone, as long as it's not her. My mother had me at 17 with a man I never met. We didn't just grow up poor, we grew up in chaos. She was an addict, not to one thing, but everything. Alcohol, cigarettes, pills, men. Depends on the day. There were times I'd be left at a neighbor's house for 3-4 days straight, no one checking if I'd eaten. I moved out when I was 16. We had a fight. I slammed the door and ran from that filthy apartment with a backpack, $60, and a pain that had already planted roots inside me. I couch surfed, washed dishes for cash, enrolled in a trade program, and tried to stitch myself back together. No one came looking. No one asked, "Are you okay?" My mother vanished like I had been nothing more than a bad dream she was relieved to forget. At 25, I met my husband. He was light. For the first time, I was around a man who didn't scream at me, who didn't treat me like a prop, and who didn't disappear at 2 a.m., leaving behind the smell of whiskey and ashtrays. He was kind, gentle, and as some would say, lucky, because I married a rich guy. His family was wealthy. But more than that, they were good. His parents welcomed me like I had always belonged. His mother hugged me the first time we met and said, "You feel like a daughter to me." I cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes that day, because no one had ever called me their daughter without a string attached, without cruelty. We got married 3 years later. His family, despite their means, never flaunted anything. They were generous, thoughtful, quiet about their wealth. And I never cared about money. Because when you've survived on stale crackers and fear, you learn to value peace more than gold. My husband and I made a decision early on. We would never tell my mother about his family's finances, partly because she didn't deserve to know, and partly because I was afraid. We lived quietly for almost a decade, until one day she came back. She messaged me on Facebook, for the first time in nearly 10 years. "I want to see you," she wrote. "I want you to meet your sister." I froze. Sister? I had no idea she'd even been pregnant. Turns out my mom had a midlife baby. My sister was 2 years old. And somehow my mom wanted redemption. She wanted to reconnect. I hesitated, but I went. Not for her, but for the little girl who didn't ask to be born into that mess. When I met them, my mom looked more sober than I remembered. The baby, my sister, was sweet, bubbly, innocent. And it broke something in me to think she might grow up in the same nightmare I had. We kept in touch. I even invited them over. She visited a few times, acted polite, didn't ask for anything. For a second, I thought, maybe, just maybe. Then one day, sitting in my car, she broke down crying. "I can't do it," she sobbed. "I can't be her mother. I'm tired. Can you take her?" My husband and I took 2 weeks to decide. He knew how deep my scars ran, but he also knew I loved that little girl, so we did the right thing. We adopted her. We got legal support. His family's lawyers helped us with the process. Full legal custody. My mother agreed. She even seemed relieved. My husband's family treated her like their own granddaughter. His mother opened a trust fund. His father read bedtime stories to her when they visited. She was happy. I was happy. I started to believe maybe finally my past could rest. But it couldn't. During one of the supervised visits, my mother saw my sister playing with a new iPad wearing a designer outfit, and she said, "Since when were y'all this rich?" I blinked. She continued, "If you had all this money, why didn't you ever help me? If I'd known you lived like this, I never would have given her to you." I just stared. "You think that's why we're raising her?" I asked. She screamed, "You're selfish. You could have supported me, and you hid it. You let me rot while you live in luxury." I didn't say a word. I picked up my sister and walked her into her room, closed the door behind us. I never lied about the money. I just never told her, because I knew she'd weaponize it. And I was right. My husband, ever the gentle one, offered, "If you want to help her, I'll wire the money, just so you won't feel guilty." I looked at him, eyes full of tears, and said, "I don't feel guilty. I feel relieved. Because now I know, no matter what I do, she'll always find a reason to blame me." I cut off her private visits. I told her clearly, "If you're coming, it's to see your daughter, not to ask for money. If that's a problem, don't come. Maybe I'm cruel, maybe I'm cold, but I'm not letting the woman who abandoned me get a second chance to destroy my sister. Not this time." Story 5. I publicly shamed my stepmother for trying to erase my real mom from my wedding narration style. Quietly powerful, emotional, steady, and composed, with a final moment of deeply satisfying closure. I'm 27, and I'm my parents' only daughter. My biological mother passed away from cancer when I was 10. She was beautiful, gentle, and loved me with everything she had. There isn't a single memory I have of her that doesn't include her smile, until it faded. Little by little. Along with her hair, her skin, her energy. And finally, her presence. My dad was different. He wasn't great at showing emotion. I don't blame him. Everyone grieves in their own way. But only 1 year after my mother's funeral, he introduced me to a woman named Linda. Linda is the kind of woman you'd expect to see in a Lifetime movie. Elegant, polished, sugar-sweet voice with eyes like ice. I was 11 when she walked into our house and said in a cheery voice, "Hi, sweetheart. I'll be taking care of you now," I said flatly. "I already have a mom. She just died." Linda smiled and patted my head. "Well, your mom's not here anymore. So now you have me, okay?" No. Not okay. Not even close. Linda wasn't some evil fairy tale stepmother. She didn't hit me, didn't starve me, but she quietly erased my mother's existence. The wedding photo of my parents gone from the shelf. The framed hospital picture of me and my mom replaced with a photo of Linda and me at the park. The gold necklace my mom left me. Locked up safely, Linda said, in a safe I never had access to. I lived in silence, because every time I spoke up, my dad would sigh and say, "Linda's just trying. Don't make it harder." I felt like a stranger in my own home, but I endured, because I knew that one day I would be in control of my life. That day came on my 25th birthday, when the man I loved proposed. We'd been together 5 years. We weren't loud or flashy, but we were solid. When he proposed, I didn't scream or cry. I just said yes, and hugged him like I never wanted to let go. And I made a promise to myself, this wedding will carry my mother's presence. No one, especially Linda, will take that away. We chose a small garden venue filled with white flowers, my mom's favorite. I wore her wedding dress, tailored it myself. It fit like magic. I wore the gold necklace she gave me. And most importantly, I arranged for one special thing, a single empty chair, placed front and center with a sign that read, "Reserved for my mother, always with me." Linda lost her mind. She showed up early the day before the wedding and asked, "Who's that chair for me?" My mom. She scoffed. "Your mother is gone. This is disrespectful to the living, especially to the woman who's raised you for 16 years. And that was the moment I snapped. "You didn't raise me. You brainwashed my father, erased every trace of my real mom, and called me your daughter when I never gave you that right." She hissed, "I am your mother. Me. You can think that. But today is not about you. Today is my mother's day. And I'll do whatever it takes to make sure she's here, even if only in spirit," Linda told my dad. He came to talk, let out one of those tired sighs and said, "Can't you just let this go?" I looked him in the eye and asked, "Do you remember her? Do you miss her?" He went silent. I continued, "Then let her be here. One chair, one memory, one small bit of fairness." He walked away without another word. The wedding was beautiful. I walked down the aisle holding white flowers and saw the empty chair up front. Sunlight landed on it like someone was sitting there smiling. Linda. She sat stiffly, face like someone had stolen the spotlight. When the MC invited the family to give a few words, I stepped up and said, "Today, I want to thank my mother, the one who taught me what unconditional love looks like. She may not be here in the flesh, but I know she's here with me. And Mom, I did it. I made it." A few guests wiped tears. Linda left 10 minutes later. Didn't say goodbye. After the wedding, I sent her a photo of the empty chair with the sign. Attached was a note: "I already had a mother, and I always will. She never replied, and I don't need her to." Story 6. My boyfriend refused to let his family stay with us because he refused to hurt me. Someone with severe PTSD narration style, gentle, vulnerable healing with emotional clarity and quiet strength. I'm not someone who lets people in easily, and I definitely don't let them stay in my life without a fight. I have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from a long, ugly string of experiences I'll never fully erase. I was home invaded as a child. I was betrayed by a family member I trusted. And for over 10 years, I couldn't sleep in the dark out of sheer bone-deep fear. So to me, safety isn't just a vague concept. It's something I cling to with both hands every single day just to hold myself together. And then I met Daniel. Daniel wasn't a hero. He didn't show up and fix me. He didn't try to. What he did was be patient. He learned how I flinched at loud noises, how I froze when someone I didn't expect entered the house. He built trust with me, one careful moment at a time. Early on, he told me, "If anyone ever needs to stay with us, if anything about our living space changes, I promise I'll talk to you first." And for the past 3 years, he's kept that promise. The issue began when his younger sister, Mia, broke up with her boyfriend and asked to crash at our place. I was never close with Mia. She's loud, not malicious, but careless in a way that makes it hard to be around her. the kind of person who blasts music at 1 a.m. and thinks it's just a vibe. She'd been to our place twice. Both times I had a panic episode after she entered my room without asking just to borrow a charger. I don't hate Mia. I just know she's not a match for someone like me, especially not in a shared space. When Daniel told me she wanted to stay for a few weeks, I clenched my fists. I didn't want to say no immediately. I knew he loved his sister, but I also knew I couldn't sacrifice my mental stability for someone who didn't respect personal boundaries. All I said was, if she stays here, I won't feel safe locking my bedroom door. I won't be able to sleep. I'll lose control over my space, and I'm scared. Daniel nodded and said, "Then it's a no. End of story. I'll tell her." I just sat there stunned. "You're sure I don't want to put you in a tough spot?" Daniel looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "Anyone who doesn't respect you has no right to share your space. Being family doesn't give them a license to hurt you." He told me a no, and just like I feared, drama exploded. She went on Facebook and posted a vague, passive-aggressive status. "People say family is where you go when the world falls apart." I just needed a place to breathe. Guess for some people a girlfriend matters more than blood. She didn't tag anyone. But everyone knew who it was about. Daniel's parents called him, accused him of choosing his girlfriend over his own blood. She just needed a place to crash for a few weeks, they said. Daniel didn't budge. He calmly said, "Yeah. And my girlfriend is the only person in my life who doesn't make me wonder whether home will be peaceful or chaotic." That was the line that broke things. His family went cold. Some blocked him. Some unfriended me. A few even called me directly and said things like, "What gives you the right to ruin a sibling bond? You think PTSD is a free pass to be selfish?" I didn't respond, because I knew anything I said would be used against me like it always had been. Daniel stayed with me, never complained, never resented me. Only once did he say, "I hate that people think loving someone with PTSD is inconvenient. I don't love you in spite of your pain. I love you even when you're scared." 3 months later, Mia found a temporary home with a close friend. It lasted 2 weeks until that friend kicked her out for not respecting shared space. Mia called Daniel again. This time she was crying. "I just need a few days. I won't bother anyone," Daniel asked me. I paused, then said, "If I'm not home, if someone else is supervising, if nothing unexpected happens, then okay." Daniel nodded. We got Mia a hotel room nearby. He visited her every day, not because I made him, but because he chose to love us both without hurting either. It's been 3 years since that moment. We've built a stable, quiet life. I'm still in therapy. I still have sleepless nights. But I have someone beside me. Not because he's putting up with me, but because he chooses to stay every day. I used to think my PTSD made me unworthy of love. Daniel showed me. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You just need the right person to love you the right way. And those were the 6 stories from today's video. Controversial, emotional, and brutally real. Stories from Reddit that might leave you angry, moved, or maybe reflecting on your own life. If you've ever been through something similar, share it in the comments. You're not alone. Here at Reddit Echoes, every experience, no matter how painful, messy, or unbelievable, deserves to be heard. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a single story. We tell real stories with all the emotion, bitterness, and raw truth behind every breath they carry.